And I'm back with Gareth, the main man for your Talking Tactics show. Make sure you smash that like button and hit that subscribe button. Help us on the road to 5K. We are just over 100 away from the big magic 5,000 subscriber mark. So please help us get there. Get your comments in as well. We're going to talk about another disappointing day up in Newcastle at St James's Park after Aston Villa lost 3-0 in another bruising defeat at up north in the northeast. And another eventful one, Gareth, not in the right way for Aston Villa. Lots of talking points again. But how are you, mate? How was your Christmas? And we're talking about another defeat, unfortunately.
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Yeah, not the best of Christmases, but it was all right. It was decent enough. And yeah, it was just a shame that we couldn't, sort of get a result. I mean, were we hopeful going up there knowing that we haven't won up there for so long? Probably not. Did we expect a better performance again? Yeah, we did. But did we get it? No, we didn't. All right, the red card dictated a lot of that, but it just didn't look like we were up for it, did it?
No, it was... Well, look, you all of the team talk, all of the tactics, all of the coaching that you've done over the week and the preparation that you've done totally goes out of the window when you can see the goal after 80 seconds. And Unai Emery must have been... We know how particular he is. We know what he's like in terms of his plans and how meticulous he is. But that must have been an absolute just gutting for him for us to be so passive in that goal as well.
Yeah, it was. We know what Anthony Gordon's going to do. You know what he's going to do. So it just kind of like, you must be aware of that. I think when teams start quickly, especially at St James's Park, for the fans, it's hard. It is hard because they do start really well. They press high, and they look to get us. They know we want to play from the back. And it's just one of them things. You just got to be a little bit more sensible. And that's where our game management has suffered in the past, hasn't it? And yeah, like you say, to concede so early on, straight away, you're on the back foot.
Well, you caused a bit of stir on X, which we'll get into in a bit, around the controversial red card, shall we say, or maybe not so controversial red card, but we'll talk about that a bit later. Everyone's here for the stat pack and everyone's here for the analysis. So let's just start with the tail of the tape. Anything really sticking out to you here in terms of what you saw and what the kind of this tells us? Oh, I think I lost you there. You back?
A lot of what we're going to see now is obviously dictated by the fact of the red card. So, the attacking stats, you would think that Newcastle would see a lot more of it, in which we can see. I mean, 580 passes, for example, compared to our 350. We're not a long ball team. They're not either. But look, we're playing more longer balls. And again, we're still building up from the back. And it's just an all-round performance from Newcastle that deserved them the 3-0 victory eventually. And our PPDA tells you everything, in that we just had to sit off because of the fact that they had the ball. But their 5.16 there tells you that they like to press.
Yeah. And what annoys me is it's not what's the word? It's not a complicated tactic from Eddie Howe. And Eddie Howe seems to have the number over Unai Emery and probably Aston Villa in a way, because he used to beat Dean Smith quite a bit. And I just don't understand how you can't think, right, Newcastle are going to press us fast and press us quite intensely. They're not going to go too tight so that they're one-on-one so you can turn them easy. But what they're going to do is wait till that ball is going into it, and then they're going to accelerate. So just play into the channels, just play more like percentage balls, or even just be up for the battle to win the second balls in the midfield. I can't understand it because it's not a complicated tactic to play against.
No, and I thought to myself at the time, when you like, yeah, same as you know they're going to press high. So if you're Martinez at the goalkeeper, just get Cash and Dina high on the halfway line and just either play up to them so they can flick balls, head balls into those channels, like you say, or just play directly into the channels. And it gives Newcastle something to think, oh, hang on a minute, we weren't expecting this. We were expecting them to play out from the back. Don't give them exactly what they want, knowing that they're a very, very good high pressing team, I should say. Newcastle, really organised, backing up from wide areas and backing up from central midfield. Don't do that because they know that that's what you're going to do. Just play long, give them something else to think about, make them think, and then you can go back to your sort of building up from the back if you want and mix it up a little bit. But yeah, like you say, it's very predictable, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, maybe the passing networks might tell us what we were trying to do, or not necessarily succeeding with, so to speak. Anything that you can notice here?
Well, I mean, again, from us, it's a very similar shape, asymmetrical type of shape where Cash sits deeper a little bit, the number 2, and Dina, the number 12, is high. Now, that's probably one of the highest positions we've ever seen him in. And I think that a lot of that is to do with the fact that we did play up to him quite a bit after the red card, and we did play through Pau Torres. And I just think in midfield, it's kind of a little bit static there with Tila, with Kamara and Onana, 44 and 24. And Tielemans sort of playing sort of very closer to Morgan Rogers there. And we just needed that little bit more of a spread. The shape's actually not that bad. If you put Watkins in there, let's say where John Duran is after 32 minutes, it's not a bad shape. It's just the fact that we didn't do it enough and we were pressed too intensely. And Newcastle are always going to go down their left-hand side. And that's what proved to be the case.
Yeah. I mean, that average position of Tielemans and Rogers and the gap there between them and John McGinn does leave a little bit of a puzzling point, because there, Joe Linton's going to pick the ball up in there, Bruno's going to pick the ball up in there, and they're just going to run at our players. Like, it just seems, you look at that look at the position of Joe Linton on that left-hand side. He just kind of had a huge gap. And he just dominated Kamara, and Kamara just got overrun a lot of the time in those positions.
Yeah, the two shapes, in fact, are not too dissimilar, are they? You've got sort of Rogers, Tielemans and Dina on that left-hand side, and on Newcastle's left-hand side, you've got a similar shape with Joe Linton, Anthony Gordon, and I can't remember the left back. Was it Hall?
Lewis
so,
Hall.
I mean, you've got that sort of similar sort of thing going on. Yeah, so you've got that similar sort of shape. But it's just, I think it was more of an out of possession thing for us, wasn't it? That we struggled to sort of, maintain it or implement and being pressed when we're building up, and then when we recover the ball, we weren't quite sure what to do.
Yeah. So, passing sonars, quick look at these in terms of both sides. Anything you notice about the frequency or direction of where we were playing?
I think a lot of this points to Morgan Rogers having to sort of drop deep there, and you've got John McGinn further up top. Now, as we say, the 32 minutes when we played sort of 60 minutes with 10 men, so this kind of dictates that a lot of it. But I mean, look at sort of Morgan Rogers having to drop deeper into our own half almost, on average. So it was kind of those, what do we do? Are we trying to play? We need to still play because we've got 10 men and score, but we're frightened about what we're going to do. And I think Matty Cash and Dina on the fullbacks were sort of a lot of, you can see that their signals are sort of inverted, if you like. So it means they're coming inside and they're playing out a little bit more. And we just didn't get it right.
Yeah. Newcastle, I mean, quite noticeable in terms of the press that they put on us.
Exactly. I mean, look how high they are on average on that left-hand side. And that's what they're doing. They're putting pressure on that side. They know that Matty Cash is the weak link. No offence to Matty Cash, but he is the weaker fullback defensively, probably out of the two. And they knew what they were doing there.
Yeah. Looking at our shot map, well, not so interesting shot map and Newcastle shot map. I mean, that is just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it tells its own story, doesn't it? There's not much more I can say about that. I mean, I just think we didn't sort of even play up to Watkins or Duran enough when we had the opportunities to do so.
Yeah, yeah. And interesting, we looked at the tail of the tape. We had 6 corners in the game, yet we had one header from Pau Torres, I think, that maybe he should have done better with. But you're thinking six corners away from home, particularly, you should be doing something better with them.
It's not our strong point, is it? It seems to be defensively and offensively. It's not something we're very good at, or we're not as good as what we were, sort of thing. And I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, there are opportunities, especially if you're having the least amount of possession. When you do get a corner, try and at least make the most of it. Cause them some problems, give them something to think about, but it just didn't work.
No. And then this again tells its own story here.
Yeah, it was quite a poor start. I mean, Gordon's obviously got the goal early on, but we sort of recovered a little bit for a first sort of 15, 20 minutes, but it just wasn't enough. And then just as we sort of managed to sort of get ourselves a little bit more comfortable, Duran goes and gets himself sent off. So, and then you're looking at a timeline. You're not only away from home. If this was a home game, we probably wouldn't have seen such a big increase, so huge amount of shots from Newcastle. But given at home, they're buoyed. It's just one of them things, and it was constant, wasn't it? It was just a constant threat.
Yeah, wave after wave, and again, here we have the expected threat sort of chart and rolling threat, and again, as you say, we had a little bit of a spell after the first goal. We settled ourselves down, and it did look like we were controlling getting some more control in the game. I remember Morgan Rogers pinching the ball and nearly going through. He probably made the wrong decision. Then we had the free kick from Luca Dean. And, thought, what, we can get back in this game. We're turning it into a real game here. But obviously the red card just completely changes the whole momentum of the game. And you're trying to hang in there as much as you can and try and be 1-0 down for as long as possible. But we ultimately couldn't. We just caved in. And when you're giving chances to the team as well by trying to play out from the back, I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, and especially, the first thing I noticed when I plotted this was look at the amount of expected threat just before half time and straight after half time. So they're ending the half strong and they've started it strong again, and then after sort of, 15 minutes or 19 minutes after the first half, they've then scored again after. So they not only they accumulated that expected threat, they've built some momentum, and then they then scored the second goal from it.
Yeah. One area where Newcastle really did dominate us, and we could see it. You could see the pressure they were putting on us with the turnovers, and 11 turnovers is just too much, isn't it?
Yeah, the most against Aston Villa all season long by a country mile. I think the highest was 4. So, I mean, well, I've plotted before. So 11 high turnovers. And not only that, 8 of them ended in a shot and plus a goal from it. So we don't want to see this. You don't want to see this. Again, it's the red card is an influence of it. But even with 10 men, you've got to try and maintain or get some sort of ability and just keep possession of the football. But we didn't kind of do either. It was almost like a rabbit caught in the headlights.
Yeah. And is this character? Is this leadership? Is this strength? Is this kind of players wanting standing up and being counted? Because yes, you're down to 10 men, but that doesn't stop you from getting into space to be able to receive the ball. It doesn't stop you from getting into position where your body's in between the player and the ball when you're receiving the ball. You can't be receiving the ball square so that you're just facing your own goal. It's the basics of football, and I don't understand why, particularly in these high-profile away games, the likes of Chelsea, Newcastle, Liverpool, we sort of revert to this, like you said, rabbit in the headlights type football. Like nobody wants to get into space to receive it. It's almost like they've just got one type of pass to make. Once that's solved, then we're just easy to play against.
Yeah, and I think from what my sort of takeaway after the red card was, look, let's try at least if it's going to suit our style of play, what we like to do, give the ball to Morgan Rogers. Let's do it. Well, that's what we needed at that time, was to give your ball carriers the ball, give the ball carriers the ball, and let him drive you up the pitch. If you're going to do that, just let him drive you up the pitch and at least keep hold of the football for a decent period of time. But it's like they all shrink away a lot of the time from their responsibilities. And I don't think necessarily it is leadership, because I think even with Tyrone Mings on the pitch, even with John McGinn, they're both leaders. I know Tyrone wasn't on the pitch, but we've struggled in situations like this with both those sorts of players on the pitch. So, yeah, maybe you do need a voice, but there are enough experienced leaders and experienced players on that pitch to know what was going on. I noticed after the second goal went in, even their heads just sort of just dropped, and they almost didn't know what to do themselves. So when you see your players do that, experienced international players, they just didn't know what to do.
Yeah, and it's disappointing. It is really disappointing, because we've been in positions of where we've been down in games, not necessarily in these real high-profile big games, where it's probably the one area where we haven't won from behind against a top side away from home, where the crowd's really on and you arrest control from the game. That's probably one area where what we haven't done, but it's disappointing. And I went on a bit of a rant after the Chelsea game. You can't rely on the tactics of Unai Emery every single time, in every single moment of every game. Sometimes you have to grab the game by the scruff of the neck. Sometimes you have to have a go at someone. Sometimes you have to put a big tackle in on someone. Sometimes you have to do like it's the intangibles of the game that we seem to lack in these big games, like against the top sides. Just winning the battle against your man, having saying something to put them off guard, treading on their toes, doing these nasty things that you've got to do, that Joe Linton's doing, Tonali's doing, Bruno's doing. Shah was pulling, I don't know if it was Watkins or I don't know who it was, but he was pulling the back of his shirt and he ended up getting the free kick. And we look like mugs. We look stupid. This is what Aston Villa should be doing. And yeah, sometimes it's not very nice, but this is what we should be doing in these big away games.
Yeah, we've spoke about it a lot, haven't we? About being strong and not showing any weakness. And I think they did. I think it was a lot of it. Yeah, you do. You need a little bit of nastiness, and you need to get stuck in and things like that. And where was the John McGinn? He's the sort of player that sort of ends up sort of getting our players up and with a tackle, getting stuck in and that. I left sort of thinking to myself, where was this Villa team, the same one that beat Arsenal 2-0 last season? That was what I reflected on.
Yeah. Well, just quick looking at so a couple more visits that you've done. Obviously, really, really good research here, really good analysis. So please check out Gareth at One Villa Analysis, where he goes through it all on X. But yeah, looking at our out of shape and average defensive action, I mean, the gap between the midfield and John Duran is just incredible.
Yeah, it tells you everything. And what I also noticed is not just that, but look at all the look at the size of the circles of the Newcastle players. All the defensive, look how many players have got larger circles, which means more defensive actions.
Yes. Well, we totally lost the battle, and it's so disappointing against. I know it means a lot to me because I live here, but it frustrates me so much, because when you see the performance against Man City at home, when you see the performance against Brentford, who were absolutely flying at the time at home, why can't we do that away from home, just with a bit more nous, a bit more steel? I can't get my head around it.
Yeah, and I think you've probably hit the nail on the head. That's what it is steel, isn't it?
Yeah. I wanted to just look at these two, because it's just laughable. The chance creation zones. I mean, that's I don't know what I just made me laugh. One from a corner for Villa, and then everything for Newcastle from every area.
Yeah, and a lot of them in those half space areas that we talk about, where sort of, people like Joe Linton and that, who seems to have the game of his life against us for some reason every time he plays us. And it's those sorts of areas where they were more important. They're not really out wide areas. They're in those half space areas just on the corners of the box, which we seem to struggle with a lot.
Yeah, well, look, I think it's one to move on from. And if we can, I said in my little ratch reaction yesterday, if we can move on and beat Brighton and beat Leicester at home, a Christmas period of 9 points from 4 games is pretty good. It's just got to be done now. We've got to back it up, and try and turn this away form out. Yes, it's been really difficult games, but try and turn this away form around next year.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you say, we've got a couple of quite winnable games for us, if you'd like to say that. I just think we need to try and take that home form 2 away games and maybe get a couple of away games where we do gain some confidence. But this is Villa. It wouldn't be sort of any excitement, would it, if we did things the easy way. So yeah, they just need to try and sort of maintain that form, I think.
Yeah, and an opportunity now for Ollie Watkins. Whatever the debate about John Duran and his red card and all that, and I know you were in a bit of controversy for having an opinion, which I agree with. I think it was a red card. I can't say anything else. I said it on my. I don't think it was malicious in that way, but I think he probably could have moved out the way. He could have done maybe more to avoid it and sort of look like he was, how players do, just be a bit clever, just be a bit smarter about it. And if I always look at if the shoe was on the other foot, if it was Isak against Konsa, I would have been screaming for a red card. And I know if Aston Villa fans look at themselves in the mirror, they would have been saying exactly the same thing. But we have to move on from it. It was never going to get rescinded. They're never going to go against what the referee says, particularly as now they talk about referees call a lot more, i.e. the similar to cricket where it's umpires call. They kind of go down that route more. It's never going to get rescinded, but an opportunity for Ollie Watkins, mate.
Yeah, he's got the chance now, to try and sort of stake that claim back again. I think, like I said, I think I've said everything I can on that record, and I agree with everything you say. It's one of them things, but I don't like the way that we all end up blaming referees for decisions and everything else. And it is what it is. You're not going to change it. At the end of the day, that shouldn't change the level of performance for the rest of the 60 minutes of the game. And you just didn't even think for the first few minutes we were in that game properly. We didn't look like we were at it. And so I think blaming referees is a bit of a nonsensical argument, really. It's pointless because it's not going to change. So we just need to make sure Ollie Watkins gets a bit of support out there, try and get that form back, and that he needs to get. And hopefully we can do it.
Absolutely. And yeah, I'm all about accountability. You can't just be talking about the referee and this and the referee that. Duran has to take some responsibility for it. He's probably winding up Shah. Shah's winding him up. That's the nature of the game. That's what I said to you before we came on the show. I actually like that. I actually like that he was trying to put one in on him. And that's what more of the Villa players should have been doing from the start. But he obviously took it a bit too far in the eyes of the referee and whatever else. We've just onto Brighton. Would you make any other changes? Because is it time to maybe bring Mings back in? Because it seems strange that he played so well against Brentford and gave us so much leadership. But correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've seen him since. And I would have been tempted to go Mings, Watkins, and Maatsen in the game against Newcastle, purely because I think Watkins would have ran their defence better than Duran. Mings would have provided the leadership. And we needed pace out wide because that's where you can damage Newcastle. And I don't think Unai got it right on that sense. But obviously, Brighton's a different kettle of fish. But would you like to see Mings back in maybe? I know the Matty Cash is out, so we're probably going to see a change at right back. But yeah.
Yeah, I think Maatsen probably comes in at right back. Do you think? I mean, I'm not so sure. I don't know whether he could or not. I wouldn't take Dino out the side personally. I like Dino. I think he provides that outlet on that left hand side. I think we need those crossing. I think we need that. Tyrone Mings definitely. I think Tyrone Mings is about right to come back in. Yeah, especially against Brighton who are set pieces. I think we're going to need that. And Watkins up top. Maybe JJ comes in if he's fit enough because he's back training, with the lads. So maybe sort of bring that in over John McGinn. Maybe, I don't know. But people sort of need to sort of either get a bit of a rest or get a bit of a kick up their backside for want of a better reason. Because I think people are very comfortable in their position. Some of these players.
Yeah. It's such a strange one. It's such a strange one. This away from home form. This perceived lack of steel, lack of character, lack of fight. Because at home, it seems like we're getting that mojo back. We just need to try and find it away from home. And yes, it's been the case for lots of teams across the league. Newcastle could go to Old Trafford and buy it, and lose Manchester United. The league, this is what the league is like at the moment. It's just trying to find some form of consistency. So I don't think the problems are huge. I think they're more tweaks, and I think they're more mindset tweaks than actual technical or tactical. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Gareth, thank you very much, mate. Where can people find you?
You can find me at that Karate JC, or for all the Villa stuff at One Villa Analysis.
Brilliant stuff, mate. Well, we'll be back certainly after the Brighton game, hopefully talking about a victory. I wish we'd have been talking about the Man City game, but obviously stuff got in the way, holidays got in the way and all that. So, but hopefully we'll be back talking about victories. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, help us on the road to 5K. We'll be back with a preview for the Brighton game very soon. Obviously match reaction and all that. So stick with the channel. Have a great rest of the Christmas time and into the new year. Thank you all for watching. And as always, remember, we all follow the Villa.